as Jesus wraps up January 9, as Jesus wraps up the Sermon on the Mount, and he is wrapping it up, he talks about false prophets and good and bad fruit and etc. And the last thing he says, the last teaching pericope that Jesus presents in chapter 7 is the wise and foolish builders. Now, if you grew up in church or went to Sunday school or vacation Bible school, you probably sang something like this or have heard someone sing something like, the wise man built his house upon the rock. The rains came down and the floods came up, and it's a cute little song, and it makes for a great little story. For and because there's wise and there's you have builders and you can have blocks and they can fall down and kids can push them down and say, "Yay, isn't that fun?" It's a cute story. It's not a cute story. It's a devastating story. It's a frightening story. It's an horrific story. Jesus said there's only two responses here. You have a wise builder and a foolish builder. And what they have in common is they're both building houses. Houses would represent their whole life. The beginning, the middle, the end of their life is built on something. And both of these builders have heard the words of Jesus. So if you're building your life and you've heard the words of Jesus, there's only two options. You're either a person who hears his words and puts them into practice, or you're a person who hears his words and does not. The person who hears his words, Jesus said, that person is wise. They dig. They build their house on the rock. There's a foundation that their life is built upon. The person who does not build their house on the sand. They build their life. They've heard it. They might agree with it. They might even think, hey, Jesus, thumbs up. But they choose not to conform. The foundation determines the shape and structure of the house. So they decide not to build the shape and structure of their house, their life, upon the precepts, the teachings of Jesus. And the sand is willy-nilly and it accommodates preferences. So they build their life according to their preferences. Somebody shout no. Okay? They build their life according to what's accommodating to their preferences, to what's convenient for them, to what they think is right or wrong. But they're both building, and both of these builders experience storm, rains, floods, beat against that house. Now, Jesus has been talking eschatologically, so we can't change the subject. We can't say that the first storm that we should interpret, that Jesus intends us to understand, is that he is describing judgment in terms or in analog, using the analogy of storms, great storms, that the storm is going to test and beat against that house. And in judgment, when we stand before the Lord, the judgment will reveal the authenticity of our faith, whether or not we have obeyed Jesus. Just like we read about Abraham, that it's not enough to say, yes, I believe, but to demonstrate we believe by obeying, that our life obeying Jesus will prove, not only prove and reveal the sincerity of our foundation, there will actually be reward for it. We've already heard that all the way through the Sermon on the Mount so far, that our Heavenly Father is eager and ready to reward us. So the person who builds their life, who conforms their life to the structure, the foundation of Jesus' teaching, can expect that their life will not only will survive judgment, pass the test of judgment, but they'll be rewarded for it. But the person who does not, Jesus said, the person who hears the word but chooses not to build their life, you can wear Jesus merch, you can wear a WWJD bracelet and never actually do anything Jesus says. You can say you're a fan of Jesus, you can like Christian music, but if you live your life in disobedience, you've built your house upon the sand according to your preferences, and you've accommodated what you want to do, and your life will not stand the test of judgment. Furthermore, this life, whenever Jesus uses the ultimate, he always includes the immediate. So if I'm supposed to love my neighbor, then I'm obviously still supposed to love those love my enemy. If I'm supposed to love my enemy, I'm supposed to love people closer to me as well. So if my life is going to survive the storm of judgment as a person who's built their life upon Christ's words, it's also going to survive the storms that this life throws at me, trials and challenges. This life will throw wind and rivers and rain and storms and stuff. But if you'll follow Jesus, you'll obey Jesus, storms will come and storms will go, but you'll still be here. You will survive. You will overcome. The life of the disciple is a life of an overcomer. But Jesus says the life of the person, even in this world, the life of the person who hears the words of Jesus and chooses to sample a little here and there, kind of give them a thumbs up, but not obey them. It's not enough that you know them. If you aren't obeying Jesus, then this life will throw enough. You will not survive the storms of this life. And your life, Jesus, basically this, Jesus sums up the life, the whole life of a person who doesn't obey him as collapse. Great crash. And you know what? People, their lives, they experience these kinds of things sometimes on the regular. And then they come back and they say, oh man, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. And nobody wants to throw rocks or be condescending. And nobody wants to, life can be rough. But I'll tell you this, life is rough enough without trying to adjust on sand. Let the words of Jesus encourage and warn you today. Build your house on the rock. And not only will the storms of life reveal the genuineness of your faith, Jesus will reward it as well. God bless.